It is freeing to release your tie to the outcome and accept what will be. Can you commit to letting go when you need to? Understanding that letting go is a form of strength too. From the moment we find out we're pregnant, our identities are enmeshed with our children. We stopped being a me and started being an us. From their birth, our job is to hold on to them so tightly, protect them from danger and harm, but also to protect them from anything that they just don't like. Loud noises, bright lights, scratchy tags, cool bath water. We were literally put here to keep them safe and happy. As they get bigger, they require more than a baby seat to keep them safe or a rattly toy to keep them happy. We adapted because we had to. We baby-proofed everything as they started crawling and walking. Gifts started to actually be for them rather than for us to use for their care. Holiday traditions and toys got more elaborate. Elves moved onto our shelves. Letters were written and mailed to the North Pole. Trees were decorated, cookies were baked, lights were admired, songs were sung, gingerbread houses were built. And all of it we did together. They brought home handprint art and soda can and toilet paper roll ornaments, all strewn in glitter, with excited anticipation to watch us open and proudly display them. Do you remember the day you were able to take the baby gate down? Remove the latches from the cabinets? I don't either. It just kind of happened. Do you remember when they asked for their last action figure or Barbie doll? That just kind of happened too. We adapted to Christmas lists full of electronics and makeup because we had to. We don't expect them to have the same Christmas wants at 16 as they did at 6. Except maybe Legos. When they say ages 4 to 99, they really aren't kidding. When they're little, everything at Christmas, well, everything period, feels so very hard, so exhausting. Decorating and redecorating the tree. They'd hang the ornaments on the low branches that they could reach. And then we'd slyly sneak in and move them to the high branches that they couldn't reach. Baking cookies required the patience of a saint. And constructing gingerbread houses required a contractor's license and the patience of 2 saints. But we did it all. We did it all for them, to make them happy, to see their faces light up, and to make the memories. Or set up the pictures to implant the memories of holiday traditions. Slowly, their role in decorating becomes more carry the heavy boxes down from the attic and less set up the Christmas village with me. More, where did he disappear to now? And less, let's find the perfect branch for that together. Do you remember the last handprint ornament wrapped in handmade wrapping paper that you received? I don't either. It just kind of happened. Personally, when I do think about it, I really wouldn't want to go back to those days. I think we selectively remember sometimes. Those days were really hard. I look at pictures from back then with 3 babies in 3 years and 4 months, and honestly, my husband and I look dead in the eyes, like zombies. That's not to say I haven't enjoyed it. I mean, I have enjoyed every single moment on this thus far 16 and a half year journey. But I really don't think I preferred it to now. They're fun now. They're actual people now. They're actual people who I really like now. And I get to sleep now. I mean, it's harder to get them all in the house at the same time, let alone all in the house, no one on a phone, no one in a mood, no one in the middle of a video game that can't possibly be paused, no friends or other randoms around. My Lord, it is like herding cats to get them together to even tell them something in the same room. I've started sending group texts for everything. Dinner is ready. Did you put your laundry away? Or my favorite, because the house isn't that big, where are you? But when I can manage that and we actually bake cookies or build gingerbread houses, it's much more fun than those early years. But I am sad that those younger days are over. But I prefer this. I find that to be such an interesting contradiction. We're complex enough beings to hold two emotions simultaneously. I can be both happy for now and sad that's over. Each year, I feel a bit more like they're doing these things for me instead of me doing it for them. But I know that for many of you, it's a fight to even get them to participate, let alone to do it with a smile. So I feel lucky that they even want to do things. But I've had to adapt. When my tree decorating day that I had announced in plenty of time was hijacked by, oh, I thought I told you I had made plans. And so I ended up doing it mostly alone. I adapted. Just like when they had to skip out on plans with friends because we had tickets to go see Christmas lights, they adapted. I know that the holidays won't be the same this year as they were in the past, but I'll adapt. I won't expect it to be Christmas 2012, but I will make it special, just special in a different way. And we thought that starting all of this was hard and required strength, keeping them safe and happy when they were babies. That was a walk in the park compared to now. How amazing would it be to be able to baby get them out all into one room? Strap them in a triple jogger. As we speed run into the holidays, can we remember that it is freeing to release your tie to the outcome and accept what will be? Can we commit to letting go when we need to? Understanding that letting go is a form of strength too. As my kids have become teens, I've gradually felt cocooned off. I thought it was just me, but then I started hearing the same from other moms who felt like their worlds had gotten much smaller. Communication changes. Our identities are becoming ours again. But who are we? The issues that we face with our teens, they aren't the ones that many of us feel comfortable talking about. And we see the finish line ahead, the point where we're supposed to let go. But our identities have been so intertwined. So many people talk about the transition to motherhood, but few talk about just how hard the transition out is and how solitary. So that's what we're going to do. Grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine, and let's have that conversation. In this podcast, grounded in family communication theory, I share what I have learned as a communication scholar for over 20 years and what I'm learning as the mom of 3 teens. It's time to be seen beyond the frame of our children, beyond the frame of motherhood. It's time to ask, what do I want? Who do I want to be? It's time to reframe me. Hey guys, it's Jen. On today's episode, we're speed running into the holidays and talking about a few things to hopefully make your days merry and bright and bring peace on earth, or at least peace in your homes. Regardless of what we're celebrating this holiday season, what we experience here as parents is really the same. And, this time of year, we have so much going on. And I know that I am and you are, we are all over the place. So it seemed only appropriate that in this episode, we also have a lot going on and maybe find ourselves a bit all over the place too. First, a reframing friend reached out because she said that her teens have become much too cool for their old traditions. And reading her email, it made me think about our holiday traditions and what has stayed the same over the years, what has changed. I know I mentioned in the stressed episode about my upset over changing Halloween traditions, and considering the total meltdown I told you I had over missing out on going to a silly corn maze. And it was just a corn maze, a particular corn maze that we had gone to many years. Out in the middle of effing nowhere with a hayrod that you breathed in exhaust fumes the whole time. And we went to a corn maze. It just wasn't the corn maze. Anyway, considering said meltdown over that ridiculousness, to be honest, I'm actually quite proud of myself thus far this holiday season. Yes, I will admit to possibly overreacting a little bit, just a little bit, to the hijacking of my Trim the Tree pizza night spectacular. But in my defense, he did not tell me that he had made plans. He did not listen to me telling him that we had plans. And those were the things that I was upset about. I wasn't upset about her coming over. Need to clarify because I don't want to be that mom. Regardless, I have otherwise been a pillar of emotional stability this December. But I too have made some changes. One big one that I had to change was our New Year's Eve. In the past, we have had a New Year's Eve party of our own where we had hats and beads and noisemakers, watched a movie, had fondue, watched the ball drop. But like our reframing friend and her lack of coolness, this year, my spidey senses told me that even avec fondue au chocolat, my New Year's Eve plans weren't going to cut it this year. So, in anticipation, I launched a new New Year's Eve tradition. I had kind of already figured that eventually we'd expand our New Year's Eve party to include other people, which would, of course, include friends, significant others, our friends, whatever. But I used to be a lot of fun back then. And what I hadn't counted on was that post-COVID Jen was going to be significantly less fun and totally lame, and that the mere thought of hosting a New Year's Eve party would be a hard pass. So instead, we're going to the mountains. We're going skiing and basically chilling in the mountains for New Year's Eve. Yes, I will make a fondue, but it will be in the kitchen of an Airbnb instead, which is much cooler. Now, we mentioned Christmas lists and how they've changed for our kids over the years. Do you remember what they asked for when they were 10? Would they want those gifts now? Of course they wouldn't. Yet we expect them to be into the same traditions like they were at 10. And so we need to consider adapting. I heard a fantastic metaphor that I think would fit in really well here. It was about using old keys to open new doors. If you moved into a new home, you couldn't open the doors with your old keys. If you walked up to the new house, you would never expect to just pull out your old keys and open up the lock. Yet that's what we do in our relationships. So yes, Peekaboo made them giggle when they were a baby. And when they were little kids, taking them to the playground was like going to an amusement park. Well, your teens are new people, so we can't expect the same things to entertain them anymore. When it comes to traditions, you might need to find some new keys. 2 Christmas breaks ago, we discovered Schitt's Creek, which of course became our favorite show of all time and something that we still regularly rewatch together. We binged the series while we were baking cookies and doing other Christmas stuff. So then last year, my son reminded us of how much fun that was. So I did some research and I discovered Only Murders in the Building. It's for us to watch together, like while we were doing our cookies and stuff. He then again brought it up a couple of days ago to remind me that that is his very favorite part of Christmas break. So I need to find us a new show, I guess. We have a new tradition. So I guess I'm taking suggestions of TV shows. Regardless of where you decide to go with your new traditions, you need to adapt. In the manifesting episodes, we talked about our top 10 for happier parenting and building healthier relationships with our teens. One of those was adapt, and another was pick your battles. So, are you willing to go to blows to get her to hang up a few ornaments? Are you going to die on the sword so that he decorates a few cookies? But maybe driving around to see Christmas lights is an absolute must for you. Then great, pick that battle. Oh, but you might say they're just going to look at their phones the whole time. So what? Bring the dog as a distraction. Let them bring a friend. or choose the music you listen to. Or, you know what? Just let them use their phones. They're there with you, right? And remember the top 10? Don't assume they aren't looking at the lights too, because I would guarantee that they are snapping pictures of the lights to their friends. And if they're not, another from the list, don't take it personally. We said everything isn't about you. So just stay the course. Maybe when you do fight the it's non-negotiable, we go see Christmas lights battle next year, or in 2 years, or in 3 years, maybe that will be the year that they do look up from their phones. Regardless, for now, they're there in the car, so enjoy that part. And you know what else you can enjoy too? The damn lights, because you wanted to go see them, so go enjoy them. So really, this kind of goes back to what we talked about back in episode 1, when we said about the relational dialectic of stability and change. And remember, relational dialectics are two things that on the surface look like they're polar opposites, but we need to maintain some degree of each and keep that delicate balance between the two in order to keep our family systems fully functioning. And so we have to be open to change. We have to be open to growth and evolution, and we have to be adaptable. However, we also have to keep our family stable and consistent because people like stability and consistency. And so we're constantly trying to have this balance of being stable enough for that consistency and certainty, but having enough change for that adaptability and growth. And so that's really the line that we're walking on as parents with these traditions, because even if our kids are too cool for them, they want those things. And so that's part of their history. That's part of their stories. And we can't just stop them because, oh, well, are pouting or in a mood and they want to go do something else. We want to provide enough of that stability and consistency and tradition. However, we have to realize that they're not small children anymore. And so we have to give some room for flexibility and change. And so, we're constantly navigating that path of we want to still, and I think that that's one of the reasons that like Christmas, I always think that Christmas is so hard with kids this age, because it's like we're still trying to make it magical, right? So we got really good at making it magical. And that's what makes Christmas so special, is all the little stuff. And so now that they're older, it's almost like you have to try a little bit harder, because I know as a mom, I still want Christmas to be as magical of a time as it always was, to have December have that kind of sense to it, that it's just special, and have Christmas morning be something that's, exciting and wonderful. And it's just, it's a little bit harder to make it magical as they're teens. And so we're trying to find that balance of what is enough to keep it special, to keep tradition, to keep it comfortable and magical and stable and something that they're familiar with, but allow for the fact that they are evolving and growing as humans. And so it can't be exactly the same. And so we're trying to walk that delicate line. Okay, so I did say we were going to kind of jump around a little bit. Well, now we're jumping to another issue that many people, realistically, we are at the cusp now. I don't know about you, but my daughter was off from last Friday. My boys, they have school today and tomorrow. So, but we're kind of here on the cusp of Christmas break, holiday break, winter break. And so at this point now, our family systems are about to spend a lot more time together than they have probably since summer. And so for many of you, it might also include having your college students home for the first time for a longer period of time than before. And so that kind of is a weird time, because now your college students, they probably haven't been around very much. And so you're bringing a component of your family system back into it after being without for a while. And so that is a really tough way to have to kind of go through this readjustment period where you are trying to integrate a person back into a system that realistically has had to keep functioning without that person for the last 3 months. And so this ties both into our concept of dialectics, relational dialectics, but with a different one than stability and change. And this one is called integration and separation. And integration and separation is this idea of trying to maintain your individuality as a person while still trying to maintain the integration to the family system. And so we also, as moms, have had to fight this battle for a number of years, right? Because realistically, we see ourselves as people, or we want to see ourselves as people, as individuals. And really, that's what we've been talking about in this podcast, is kind of finding that again. And we are individuals, but yet we are also part of this greater system of being a mom and as well as being a person. And so that's the same kind of thing that our college students are really battling with when they come back, because now that they've been off on their own for a few months like this, or for a year if they've been longer in school, that they are separate people. And so now they have to find a way to integrate back into the family system. And so there's a balance between how do I, as a newly kind of like adult, kind of semi-independent person, how do I keep that I am, this semi-adult kind of person and still integrate into this home that I lived in as a child and fall back into the roles, which would be the other thing that we've talked about already, would be the roles that I played in this greater family system. And it can be hard for everybody to readapt. And part of the reason that it's hard for people to readapt are those rules, right? We said that rules have to change and have to grow as our children grow. Well, you had rules that had evolved throughout the time that your kids were like as old as mine when you were in, teenagers and in high school. And now they've been off at college and they don't have the rules. Hey, no rules. No one's looking after me. No one's telling me what to do. No one's telling me what to pick up after myself and jobs to do to help out and what time to be home. And they're on their own. And then they come back and try to fit back into that system, but that system has rules of operation and they're not used to having those rules of operation anymore. And so there can be some conflict due to that. And so we have to try to balance and try to negotiate what were the existing rules and what needs to stay the same, as well as go back into that evolution and change and what needs to evolve to this new person back in the system. Also, we can look at our family as so go with me on this. If you look at your family like a pie, like say a cherry pie, that would be a good one. I think a cherry pie, because it's kind of runny. So a cherry pie, and that's your whole family system. And that was your intact family prior to your child going to college. Now, when your child went to college, somebody cut a piece of that cherry pie out, all right, took it and sent it on a plate somewhere else. All right, what happens to the cherry pie? The pie plate has to stay full. And that's just, that's the hard sciences. That's not my social sciences. That's the hard sciences. The pie plate stays full. So the filling runs to fill up the rest of the pie plate, to fill up that space that your child held. Now, that's not to say that the family replaced your child. Okay. It just says we had to kind of fill that up. The crust is not there, but the filling is. And so that you can look at as being the roles of your family. And so now if that piece comes back in and you try to put it back in, it's kind of going to be messy. And so if you picture it that way, it makes sense of why it's so hard to put that college student back into the pie plate or back into the family system. It's not that you don't want it there. It's not that it doesn't fit there. It's just everything has had to shift and adapt to that piece of pie being gone. So maybe it's jobs, your jobs around the house. Somebody had to pick up the jobs or the tasks that person was responsible for because they had to get done. Maybe it's a physical space, hey, maybe there was a bathroom that child used and like the other two or whatever it was were sharing a bathroom. So it's not like, hey, we're just going to leave that bathroom there like a shrine to you until you come home. Somebody goes and somebody uses it, or a parking spot. So it could be space oriented, or it could be like the roles that you fill within that family system. Maybe that child was the funny one, the one that was making everybody laugh, constantly entertaining, lightening the mood. Well, when that role left, the family still had a need for that. The family didn't want to sit around and just be mopey all the time or just be even keel all the time. So maybe another one of the children stepped into that role and kind of filled that space that was missing of somebody to make everybody laugh, somebody to entertain, somebody to be the goofy one. And so now the original person who made people laugh or was goofy came back into the family system and is like, wait a minute, that's my job. I'm the one who is trying to make everybody laugh. And so there's some role conflict there of, well, that was me before, and now this is you, or maybe that was the leader of the kids kind of thing. And so somebody else had to step up and make that role for themselves because it needed to be filled. And so this is again how you can picture to understand why, even though you're anticipating this is going to be so wonderful to have my child home again. And it is, but that's not to say it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows. There's probably going to be some conflicts. And if you can understand why there are these conflicts, mainly due to trying to maintain separation as an individual and who they are, as well as how do they reintegrate and feel like part of this family. And then second, on the idea of this roles and what role do I fill in this family now, and maybe a little bit of conflict there. There's also some degree of disappointment, maybe, I guess is probably a good way to put it. And it doesn't necessarily have to mean like, hey, gosh, I thought you guys were just going to sit around and cry all the time and feel bad that I wasn't here. But there is some degree of expectation that the family shouldn't be able to go on without me. Like, how could you possibly keep going without me? Right. And so when they come home and they see that, wow, they did keep going on without me. Well, of course they had to. It's not like everybody could just sit around and wait for them to come home. The family had to adapt, but there is some degree of where do I belong? How do I fit in for some because of that? And then also, you are to expect, of course, that rules are going to be an issue with students coming home. Now, another issue kind of thing, and it's not really about, it does fit into with college students as well, but just in general, the holidays is a time that we tend to see the environment playing a bigger role in our family. And so we can look at this through what's called an ecosystem approach. Now, we have talked about our families being a system. And so each individual member is a component, and their interactions, lead to, their communication episodes lead to their daily interactions, their decision making, their conflict, everything. But all of the people in that system are interrelated and interdependent, so that if one person kind of pulls, the other one feels it. And so everybody's constantly shifting and interacting within this system. Okay. As you add people into the system, it starts to become more complex. So if your system started off as a 2-person with a couple and then added a child, the different opportunities for interactions increased. Okay. Well, then if you add a second child, it's going to increase even more, because now there's a lot more different possible relationships there and a lot more opportunity for interaction. Well, every time you add somebody on, it's going to make it more complex. So when we look at families, we can't just pretend that that family system exists in a vacuum. In actuality, we have to consider the fact that this family system is not just the individuals, it's not just the family system, that the family cannot avoid being influenced by its environment. And its environment can be your work, school, media, friends, anything going on in your culture, religion, country, extended family. And so an ecosystem approach recognizes that all of these different influences that are out there have to kind of mesh up with a family. And so you want to understand not just how the family's interactions are, but also how the family integrates into its larger environments. All right. And so another relational dialectic that we can talk about here is this balance between your nuclear family system and a greater culture. And so the family is going to have their own values, their own beliefs, their own identities, and their own goals. And so that is going to be, so you can think about your family system and like, what are our values? What do we believe in? What do we strive for? How do we identify ourselves? And so that family system then has to fit in a larger culture, a larger environment, whether it's the environment of your community, your state, your country, your religion, your nationality or ethnicity. Okay, but there are these larger cultures out there, and sometimes your family has a different belief system or different value system than that which the environment that you're put into. And so that can be, if especially you might have a family, if they transplant to another country or even another region, that happens. Or like my children were raised, I'm Catholic, and they went to, they're Catholic, and they went from pre-K up through 8th grade in a Catholic school. And then 9th grade, they go to a public high school. Well, that's a different, larger dominant culture than the small culture of our family or the beliefs and values of our family that they are placed into. And so that's another dialectic that has to kind of be balanced and navigated to try to maintain enough of your family's identity, but still you can't reject the dominant culture or you don't integrate into it. And so, but if you reject too much of your individual culture for the dominant culture, then you're going to lose your place or your beliefs in that family system. And so that is another one of those balanced relationships that you have to maintain, is your nuclear family and the larger environment or the larger culture. And so with college students, many times that is and I don't want to say the first time, because I mean, like I said, my children are in a public high school now, which is a significantly larger and significantly more variety of beliefs and values and backgrounds and all the wonderful things to be exposed to, but it's very different than their lower grades. And so for college students, I don't want to say it's the first time because a lot of them had similar kinds of experiences, but really being in a college setting is such a different environment for most people than it was in their growing up and, younger and teen years. And so for a lot of college students, this is the first exposure that they have to really being privy to day-to-day lives of people who are very, very different than they are. And this is the most wonderful part, in my opinion, as a lifelong academic. I think this is one of the most wonderful things about college, is that this is your opportunity to see things beyond your own personal lives and your own personal expectations. Because the reality is that we are very similar, similarity attraction theory, that we are attracted to people who are like us. It just makes us feel comfortable. It's just a basic, interpersonal, based on psychological theory, that we like people who are like us because it makes us feel comfortable. And so we tend to group with and associate with people who are like us. And so whether it's due to us finding people who are like us in our communities, because we tend to live in communities of people who are similar to us. We tend to, our parents have friends who are similar to them, and then therefore their families are similar to ours. We make friends who are similar to us. And so there's a lot of similarity, whether it's due to beliefs or religion or ethnicity or race or socioeconomic status or whatever. Growing up, we have a lot of similarity. Then you get to college and you get to be exposed to so much different than you. And that's when people start to really kind of see that, wait, everybody doesn't do the same thing that we did. It's not the same for everybody. I guess I never really thought about that. Every family doesn't do that, or every family doesn't have that, or every country or every area or every whatever it is doesn't do this. So they got to expose to all of these different things. And, some of that goes into this theory that we talk about, this equifinality. And equifinality is the idea that there are multiple ways to get to the same destination. We all think we have the right path. But in actuality, there are lots of different paths that get to the same place. And college is kind of a very good way to start to really see that look at that. We all got here. We all ended up here. There wasn't one right path. We could have taken a lot of different paths, and there are say 30,000 kids at a college. And you know what? They all took different paths to get there. They had different combinations of types of schooling, types of education, input from parents, types of households that they grew up in, economic status of families that they grew up in, how hard they worked in school, if they did sports or if they did theater or whatever. Okay, there were lots of different paths and they all got to the same place, equifinality. And so that starts to open up college students' eyes to all of the possibilities that are out there. And so, yes, that can cause conflict then when they do come home, because all of those things from an ecosystem approach, anything outside of your family system, the family system has inputs and outputs. Okay, so inputs is anything that comes into the family system, and outputs are things that go out of the family system. And the system has a boundary around it. And the boundary can be permeable or impermeable. So an open system or a closed system. And the more permeability in its boundary, the more open to inputs and outputs it is. So the more closed that family system is, maybe doesn't get as much inputs coming in. So family systems that are more closed off might see more conflict at these times because they didn't have as much of the inputs coming in to see all of the differences and all of the opportunities and all of the information and the perspectives and the values and the differences in beliefs that are out there. And so that closed system, or that more impermeable boundary, can lead to possibly more conflict now, because those kids are exposed to those other ideas now. And so they might be bringing them back. And again, that family system being more closed off is more resistant to those inputs and those ideas. And so that may lend itself to conflict when the child tries to bring those ideas home. So that's another area that we can see some conflict with people coming home from college for a break. Now, inputs and outputs also are people. So it's not just ideas. These inputs and outputs can also be people. And whether it's college students coming home and bringing friends around, or dating different people, or your high schoolers with friends in and out, boyfriends or girlfriends changing, and getting attached to certain people or not getting attached to certain people, or liking certain people that they're dating, or friends, or not liking. Those are inputs into that family system. And so coming from the external environment, they're going to impact the day-to-day operations of that family. And so that's something that needs to be managed, especially when people are spending more time together like we are during the holiday time. Now, another portion of looking at the ecosystem is that there are these different, in addition to, we have to understand the inputs and outputs. So inputs are anything that come in, whether it's information or media influence or people or romantic relationships or the influence of ideas of people, or outputs. So any of those things that we are putting out into the environment. And so by using an ecosystem approach, we can kind of be able to identify what is the family's place in these broader environments, the grand scheme of things. How does this family operate, and how is it different than, say, another family, who's kind of similar, but they have a different interaction with their different environments? Okay. Now, your environments then on the outside, as part of your ecosystem, one of them that we see a lot this time of year are your extended family networks. And your extended family networks are the family of origin of the adults, of the spouses. And, these extended families, whether it's your parents, your siblings, or cousins, or aunts, or uncles, or whatever. And so all of this has these intergenerational historical influences on you and your family. I heard this, there's this little quote, and I thought it was so good. It said how tradition is just peer pressure from dead people. And it's like, oh my gosh, that is so true. It really is. It's like, why do we do this? Well, I don't know. We just do it. Like, it's just something that we do. And, I know my oldest, he made his confirmation last year. Well, then my second, he was starting his first year of confirmation this year. And when he asked me, why do we make our confirmation? I couldn't come up with a good reason beyond because we're supposed to, because my grandmother would have wanted you to. And considering that my grandmother's been dead for like 20 years, that's peer pressure from dead people. And so I had to call my mom and be like, can you give me a good reason to give Kane to make his confirmation? And, it's the intergenerational influences. And at the holidays, we are really influenced by tradition, and we are really influenced by spending time and interaction with those extended family systems. We also get influence in our environment from our social support kind of systems, those grander social systems that we belong to, like our work environments, schools, churches, any kind of social relationships. All of these things, what happens in those environments impacts as an input into your family system. So if you have a good day at work, you come home and you feel good and you're happy, and it makes a more pleasant experience for your family. If you have a bad day at work, you come home feeling mad, feeling irritated, feeling exhausted, feeling irritable. You bring from that external environment into your family. If you have a friendship and you get advice from a friend, that comes in. If you have your school network or your university network of your teenagers or your college students, those intellectual stimulation, those ideas, okay, that comes in. From your religion, your church, reinforcement of your values, your beliefs, political information, that is from your social support system. And those things come in and out and impact the daily interactions of the family. Also, then you can have your greater community, your culture, the larger environments that you can belong to that can create very different ways of raising children. And, the expectations of one culture, the technology that's dominant within the culture. Okay, so things like Snapchat, TikTok, those things influence our family because they're part of this greater culture. So it's not just the media component of it. It's these cultural phenomenon that come and impact your family system that make it different than, like, say, the family system that we grew up in, our family and our family of origin, how it had been because they weren't there. And so cultural influences like that can have a big impact on the family. The regional politics, the social or political climates of countries. And this is oftentimes then why you can see like one family rerouting into another culture, whether it's like a region or a different country, that now that dominant larger culture can have very different influences than the previous one. And so in intercultural relationships, then you often have a conflict because each family of origin is putting different pressures and different influences because of the larger cultural environments onto that family's system. So, over this holiday season, as your families are spending more time together, as you're trying to create new traditions while still enjoying old ones, while you're influenced by your extended families, your friends, and all types of greater environments, hopefully by understanding these influences and these processes, I could help make your days merry and bright and bring some extra peace to your homes. Just remember that it is freeing to release your tie to the outcome and accept what will be. Can we commit to letting go when we need to? Understanding that letting go is a form of strength too. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please come back for episode 7 in the new year. And until then, please catch up on all of the prior episodes and remember to subscribe and follow. Reach out to me at jen@reframing-me.com with any questions or issues, and follow me on socials. I'm on Twitter and I'm on Instagram. And until next time, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Holidays, Happy New Year, and be well.